close-up shot of a phone screen buzzing with a message. A hand hovers over it, tense. Cut to a person's face, jaw tight, eyes narrowing. Somebody just said something to you. Maybe it was 5 minutes ago. Maybe it was 5 hours ago. And it's still sitting in your chest like a stone. Maybe it was your partner dismissing something you cared about. Maybe it was a friend who didn't show up when they said they would. Maybe it was a stranger who cut you off in traffic and didn't even look back. Maybe it was your own reflection in the mirror, disappointed in you again for the same mistake you swore you wouldn't repeat. And right now, your heart rate is a little higher than it should be. Your thoughts are replaying the moment over and over, rehearsing the comeback you didn't say, building the case for why you're right and they're wrong. You can feel it in your shoulders, in your stomach, in the tightness behind your eyes. You tell yourself you're fine, but you're not fine. You're carrying something, and it's heavy. Slow motion shot of a glass of water being filled past the brim, overflowing onto a table. Here's what I want you to sit with for a second, before I tell you anything else. You have felt this exact feeling before. Not this exact situation, but this exact feeling. The tight chest, the racing mind, the urge to defend yourself, to fix it, to say something back, to make them understand. You felt it with a parent, with a boss, with a friend who forgot your birthday, with traffic, with a slow Wi-Fi connection, with your own past self. And every single time you told yourself the same story. This person, this situation made me angry. I'm going to challenge that sentence today. Not to make you feel stupid for believing it. Almost everyone believes it because almost everyone was taught it by accident. By every adult who ever said, "You're making me so angry," to a child who was just being a child. I'm going to challenge it because that sentence is the exact belief keeping you in a permanent, exhausting cycle of getting hurt by people and things that 6 months from now won't even remember your name. By the end of this, you're going to understand something that changes how anger and upset actually work in your body and your mind. Not a trick, not just breathe. Something deeper, the actual mechanism behind why some people can be insulted, betrayed, ignored, or disrespected and stay completely calm, while other people fall apart over a slightly rude tone of voice. And I'm going to show you exactly how to build that same calm in yourself, piece by piece, starting today. Stay with me, because the second half of this is where everything actually shifts. The lie we were all taught. A child on a playground, another child taking their toy. The first child's face crumples into frustration. Let's go back to something simple. A little kid is playing with a toy. Another kid grabs it out of their hands. The first kid screams, cries, maybe pushes back. Every adult watching says the same thing. He made you upset. Nobody ever says you had a rule in your mind that said, "This toy belongs to me and no one is allowed to take it without permission." And when reality broke that rule, your nervous system reacted with distress. That's a mouthful for a 4-year-old, sure. But it's also the actual truth of what happened. And because nobody ever explains the actual truth, we grow up believing the simple wrong version. Other people and other things have the power to reach inside us and flip a switch called angry or upset. Here's the problem with that belief. If it were true, if people and situations could directly control your emotional state, then you would be permanently, completely powerless. You'd be a puppet. And every rude comment, every red light, every unanswered text would be a hand pulling your strings. But you're not a puppet. And I can prove it to you in one sentence. The same event does not create the same emotion in every person. Split screen, same scenario, a flight delay announcement shown twice. On the left, a man slams his fist on the counter, furious. On the right, a woman shrugs, puts in headphones and opens a book. Same flight delay, same announcement, same airport. One person is ready to fight the gate agent. Another person just opens a book. If the event itself created the anger, both people would react identically. They don't. Which means the event is not the cause. So what is the real formula? Here's the actual mechanism, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Event, meaning, emotion, reaction. Not event, emotion. There's a hidden step in between that almost nobody notices because it happens in a fraction of a second, faster than conscious thought. That hidden step is meaning, the interpretation your mind automatically assigns to what just happened, based on your past experiences, your beliefs about yourself, and your unspoken rules about how the world should work. A simple animated diagram forming on screen a lightning bolt labeled event, an arrow into a brain icon labeled meaning, another arrow into a heart icon labeled emotion, and a final arrow into a fist or open hand labeled reaction. Let's make this real. Your partner doesn't text you back for 4 hours. That's the event. Nothing more, nothing less. 4 hours of silence. That silence has no inherent emotional content. It is neutral. It's just time passing without a notification. But your mind doesn't experience raw events. Your mind experiences stories about events. And in that gap, in those 4 silent hours, your brain is working overtime, writing a story. They're losing interest in me. They're with someone else. They don't think I'm a priority. This is exactly like what happened with my ex. None of those are facts. They're meanings, interpretations pulled from your past wounds, your insecurities, your old patterns. And it's that story, not the silence itself, that produces the tightness in your chest, the anger, the hurt, the urge to send an angry text or go completely cold. Meanwhile, somebody else, someone with a different internal story, a different history, a different relationship with their own self-worth, gets the exact same 4 hours of silence and thinks they must be busy and goes on with their day. Same event, different meaning, different emotion, different reaction. This is not a philosophical trick. This is how your nervous system is actually wired. Neuroscience calls this appraisal. Your brain evaluates a situation against your existing beliefs before it produces an emotional response. The emotion is downstream of the appraisal, which means if you change the appraisal, you change the emotion even when the event stays exactly the same. Why this feels impossible to believe at first. I know what some of you are thinking right now. But Claude, sorry, but some things are just objectively wrong. If someone lies to me, cheats on me, disrespects me, of course I should be upset. Are you telling me I shouldn't care? No. I'm telling you something more precise and more powerful than don't care. A person standing calmly in the rain without an umbrella, unbothered, looking up at the sky with a slight, knowing smile. There's a massive difference between caring and suffering. Caring means something matters to you and you respond to it with clarity, boundaries, and appropriate action. Suffering means the event has hijacked your nervous system and is now running the show, making you say things you regret. Replaying the moment for 3 days, losing sleep, losing focus, losing your center. You can care deeply about being lied to and still respond with calm, decisive clarity. This isn't something I'm willing to accept. So here's what happens now, instead of screaming, crying, or spiraling for a week. In fact, the calmer you are, the more powerful your response becomes, because a calm person thinks clearly and a triggered person doesn't. Anger and upset don't protect the things you care about. They cloud your judgment about how to protect them. The angriest version of you is rarely the wisest version of you. And deep down, you already know this thing about the last time you said something in anger that you regretted 5 minutes later. That regret is proof. The anger wasn't serving the situation. It was just noise your nervous system generated because of the meaning you assigned, not because anger itself was the necessary or useful response. The 3 hidden rules running your life. Every time you get angry or upset, it's because one of your invisible internal rules just got broken. And most people have never once sat down and identified what those rules actually are. They just feel the emotional explosion and blame the person who caused it. Let me walk you through the 3 rules that trigger almost all anger and upset in relationships, in daily life, and in how you treat yourself. Rule 1. People should treat me the way I would treat them. 2 people at a dinner table, one warmly refilling the other's glass, the other staring at their phone, completely checked out. This is the rule behind almost every relationship resentment that exists. You show up for people. You remember their birthday. You check in when they are struggling. You give them the benefit of the doubt. And somewhere in your mind, an unspoken contract formed. Since I do this for others, others will do this for me. Nobody signed that contract. You wrote it alone in your own head and then got hurt when the other party, who never even saw the document, didn't honor terms they never agreed to. This doesn't mean stop being generous. It means stop being shocked when someone with a different capacity, different upbringing, or different priorities doesn't mirror your effort. The moment you stop expecting mirroring, you stop handing strangers and even loved ones the power to disappoint you every single day. Rule 2. If someone is upset with me, it means I did something wrong. This rule turns you into an emotional hostage of everyone else's mood. Someone snaps at you, and instantly you're scanning your last 20 interactions for what you might have done. 9 times out of 10 it has nothing to do with you. They're exhausted, stressed, insecure, having a hard week, but this rule makes you absorb their emotional weather as if it were evidence against your character. A person walking through a rainstorm holding an umbrella meant for someone else, getting soaked themselves while the other person stays dry. You cannot control the emotional weather of other people. You can only control whether you're standing there holding an umbrella over someone who never asked you to, getting drenched in their mood while they walk off completely dry. Rule 3. Things should go the way I planned. This one has nothing to do with people at all. This is the rule behind road rage, behind fury at a delayed flight, behind smashing your hand on the desk when your laptop freezes. Somewhere, you build an unconscious agreement with the universe that says, if I plan carefully enough, life owes me a smooth outcome. Life never signed that agreement either. The traffic isn't personal. The Wi-Fi isn't personal. The rain on the one day you didn't bring an umbrella isn't personal. But your nervous system treats the world didn't go according to my plan exactly the same way it treats someone betrayed me. Because underneath both is the same broken rule. Reality is supposed to obey me. Once you can name these 3 rules, something remarkable happens. The next time your chest tightens, instead of blaming the person or the situation, you can pause and ask, which rule of mine just got broken? And the second you can name the rule, you've already taken back half your power, because a named rule is a rule you can choose to keep, edit or delete. An unnamed rule just runs you like a program on autopilot for the rest of your life. A story about 2 brothers. An old family photo style image. 2 brothers, maybe 10 years apart in the frame, standing outside a modest house. Let me tell you about 2 brothers I want you to imagine. Same childhood, same father, a man who drank, who yelled, who was unpredictable and sometimes cruel with his words. Same house, same wounds inflicted at the dinner table. 30 years later, one brother is a man who explodes at the smallest inconvenience. His wife walks on eggshells. His kids flinch when he raises his voice, even in excitement. He has convinced himself, this is just who I am. I have a temper, I was born with it, it runs in the family. The other brother is remarkably calm. Not passive, not a doormat, he sets firm boundaries. He says hard truths when needed, but he does it without the explosion. His kids run toward him, not away from him. Same father, same wounds, completely different men. What was the difference? It wasn't genetics, it wasn't luck, it was the meaning each of them made from the exact same childhood event. The first brother decided, somewhere in his development, this is how men respond when they are disrespected. This is strength, anger is power. He carried his father's rule book forward without ever examining it, because nobody ever taught him he was allowed to examine it. The second brother, at some point maybe through a mentor, a partner who called it out with love, a moment of painful self-reflection after nearly losing something that mattered, made a different decision. He decided, I refuse to let my reactions be dictated by someone else's dysfunction, even my father's. I get to choose what kind of man I become in response to what happened to me. Same wound, different meaning, different life. This is the part that matters most. You didn't choose most of your original rules, they were installed in you by childhood, culture, past pain, and people who hurt you before you had the tools to defend yourself. But you absolutely get to choose whether you keep running them for the rest of your life. Why your body betrays you before your mind catches up. Let's get practical for a moment, because understanding the psychology isn't enough if you don't understand what's happening physically, because your body moves faster than your rational mind. An animated or illustrated diagram of the brain highlighting the amygdala lighting up in red with a small arrow labeled 0.2 seconds. When something triggers you, a comment, a look, a memory, a part of your brain called the amygdala fires almost instantly before the more rational reasoning part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, even has a chance to weigh in. This is why you can feel your face get hot, Your hands clench, your heart starts pounding before you've even consciously thought, I'm angry. Your body reacted first, your mind is playing catch-up, scrambling to justify a reaction that already started. This is why just calm down never works in the moment. You're not being irrational on purpose. Your nervous system has literally hijacked the steering wheel from your rational mind for a few seconds. This is sometimes called an amygdala hijack, and understanding it changes everything, because it means the goal isn't to never feel the spark. The goal is to create enough space between the spark and your reaction that your rational mind gets a chance to climb back into the driver's seat before your mouth opens or your thumbs start typing. That space is where your entire life changes. Everything that separates the calm, grounded people you admire from the reactive people who are exhausting to be around comes down to how much space they've trained themselves to create in that gap. The 6-second rule. Here's something worth knowing. Research on emotional physiology suggests that the initial chemical surge of a strong emotional trigger, the flood of stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, typically peaks and begins to subside within about 6 seconds if you don't feed it with more triggering thoughts. 6 seconds. A stopwatch counting from 0 to 6, glowing softly. That means the actual biological wave of anger is shockingly short. What extends anger into minutes, hours, or days isn't the original trigger, it's you replaying it, adding fuel, rehearsing the argument, imagining what you should have said, building the case against the other person in your head. The 6-second wave becomes a 6-hour storm because you keep feeding the fire logs made of your own thoughts. This is genuinely freeing once you see it. It means you are not at the mercy of the emotion for as long as you think you are. You are at the mercy of your thoughts about the emotion. Interrupt the thoughts, and the wave passes far faster than you'd expect. So here's a simple practice, one you can start using today. In the very next moment someone or something triggers you, the moment you feel that first spark, the heat in your chest, the tightening jaw, do not speak, do not type, do not react, just count, not out loud, silently, slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. While you count, notice the sensation in your body without judging it. Don't tell yourself, I shouldn't feel this. Just notice it, like a scientist observing weather. There's heat in my chest, there's tightness in my jaw. Interesting. By the time you reach 6, in almost every case, the sharpest edge of the reaction has already dulled. Not disappeared completely, but dulled enough that your rational mind has climbed back into the driver's seat. And from that seat, you get to choose your next move instead of being dragged by it. This isn't about suppressing anger. Suppressed anger doesn't disappear, it goes underground and comes out later as bitterness, passive aggression, or a much bigger explosion over something small. This is about creating space so that instead of reacting, you're responding, and responding from a grounded place is always more powerful, more respected, and more aligned with who you actually want to be. The relationship piece nobody talks about. A couple sitting on a couch, one visibly hurt, arms crossed, looking away, the other reaching out gently but not touching yet. Let's talk about relationships specifically for a moment, because this is where most people feel this struggle the hardest. It's easy to stay calm when a stranger is rude to you in traffic. It is a completely different challenge when it's the person you love most who says something that lands like a blade. Here's something worth understanding. The people closest to you have the most access to hurt you, not because they're more likely to be cruel, but because you've given them the keys to parts of you that nobody else has access to. A stranger calling you lazy barely registers. Your partner calling you lazy can wreck your whole week. Same word, wildly different impact. Why? Because closeness is access, and access means their words land directly on old wounds, wounds from childhood, from past relationships, from your own self-doubt that a stranger simply doesn't have the key to open. This is important, because it means when your partner says something that devastates you, it's rarely just about the sentence they said. It's about the sentence landing on top of 10 other sentences that hurt you before, from parents, from exes, from teachers, from a version of yourself that never felt good enough. The 11th hurt feels unbearable not because it was the worst one, but because it's standing on the shoulders of the other 10. This changes how you handle conflict. Instead of thinking, why are they doing this to me? A more accurate and more useful question becomes, what old wound just got touched? And does this person actually deserve the full weight of my reaction to all 10 previous wounds? or just this one? That question alone can save relationships. Because so many arguments aren't actually about the dish left in the sink or the comment about being late. They're about years of unprocessed hurt finally erupting sideways, aimed at someone who's only 50% responsible for the pain being expressed. A jar slowly filling with sand, grain by grain, until it overflows onto a table representing built-up resentment. Here's the practical shift. The next time you feel that sharp sting from someone you love, before reacting, ask yourself honestly, is this reaction proportional to what just happened? Or is this 10 years of unspoken pain finally finding an exit? If it's the second one, the healthiest thing you can do isn't to unload all of it onto the person standing in front of you. It's to acknowledge, even just internally, this is bigger than this moment, and then choose to address the actual wound, maybe in therapy, maybe in honest reflection, maybe in a calm conversation later, rather than detonating it on someone who just asked what's for dinner in the wrong tone. Self-respect is not the same as self-protection through anger. I want to address something a lot of people get backwards. Some of you have learned to associate anger with self-respect. You think, if I don't get upset, if I don't show them how much that hurt, it means I'm weak, it means I'm letting them walk over me. A person standing tall, arms relaxed at their sides, looking someone directly in the eye, calm, grounded posture. No aggression but no submission either. I want to gently take that belief apart because it's keeping a lot of good people stuck in painful cycles. Anger often feels like self-respect because it feels like fighting back. But real self-respect doesn't need volume. Real self-respect looks like calmly saying, that's not okay with me, and here's what I need going forward, and then actually following through, actually changing your behavior toward that person if the disrespect continues. That is infinitely more powerful than yelling, because yelling can be dismissed as you overreacted, while calm, clear boundary setting cannot be dismissed. It sits there, undeniable, impossible to argue with, because there's nothing emotional to attack. Think about the people in your life who command the most respect. Chances are they're not the loudest people you know. They're the calmest ones, the ones who, when they finally say something is a problem, you actually listen, because they don't say it often, and when they do, it's said with weight, not heat. You become that person not by suppressing your feelings, but by processing them first, privately, honestly, maybe even out loud to yourself or written in a journal before you bring them into the conversation. The version of you that speaks after processing is unrecognizable from the version of you that speaks during the spike of the emotion. One builds respect, the other usually needs an apology the next day. Turning it toward yourself. We've talked about other people and about situations. But there's one more target of anger and upset that almost nobody addresses directly, and it might be the most important one, yourself. A person looking in a bathroom mirror, visibly frustrated, shaking their head at their own reflection. You made a mistake at work, you said the wrong thing on a date, you ate something you told yourself you wouldn't, you stayed up too late scrolling again after promising yourself you'd sleep early, and now there's a voice, maybe quiet, maybe loud, saying some version of, what is wrong with you? You always do this. You'll never change. This is the exact same mechanism we've been talking about the entire video, just aimed inward. An event happened, the mistake. Your mind assigned a meaning. This proves I'm fundamentally flawed, and that meaning produced an emotion, shame, self-directed anger, which then produces a reaction, beating yourself up, sometimes for days. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The way you talk to yourself after a mistake is a rule you were taught, usually by how mistakes were handled when you were young. If mistakes were met with harsh criticism growing up, you likely learned that harshness equals motivation, that being hard on yourself is what pushes you to improve. But ask yourself honestly, has it actually worked? Has years of self-directed anger actually made you better, or has it mostly just made you feel worse while you kept making similar mistakes anyway? A gentle, encouraging coach figure, crouched beside a fallen runner on a track, helping them back up rather than yelling at them. The people who actually improve the fastest after failure aren't the ones who tear themselves apart. They're the ones who can look at a mistake and say, with genuine steadiness, that didn't go how I wanted. What can I learn and what's my next step? The same tone you'd use with a friend you actually cared about, instead of the tone you'd use with an enemy. This is not about lowering your standards. It's about realizing that self-directed anger and high standards are not the same thing. And you can absolutely have sky-high standards for yourself while also treating yourself with the same patience you'd offer someone you love. In fact, that patience is what makes the standard sustainable long-term, instead of collapsing into burnout, self-sabotage, or giving up entirely because the internal voice got too exhausting to keep living with. Putting it all together, a framework you can actually use. Let's bring all of this into one practical sequence, something you can genuinely use the next time you feel that familiar heat rising in your chest, whether it's a person, a situation, or your own reflection in the mirror. Step 1. Notice the spark without acting on it. The moment you feel the tightening, the heat, the racing heartbeat, pause. Don't speak, don't type. Just notice something has been triggered in me right now. Step 2. Count to 6, slowly, while observing the sensation in your body like a curious scientist rather than a victim. Let the initial chemical wave crest and begin to fall before you do anything at all. Step 3. Ask, what's the event and what meaning did I just attach to it? Separate the raw facts from the story. They didn't text for 4 hours is a fact. They don't care about me is a story. Naming the difference out loud, even quietly to yourself, breaks the story's grip. Step 4. Ask, which of my rules just got broken? Was it the rule that people should treat you the way you treat them? The rule that their mood means something about your worth? The rule that things should go according to plan? Simply naming the rule takes back a huge amount of your power, because now you're looking at a belief you can examine, not a fact you're forced to accept. Step 5. Ask, is my reaction proportional to this moment, or is this old pain finding a new exit? If it's old pain, acknowledge that honestly and choose to deal with the old pain on its own terms, rather than detonating it on whoever happens to be standing in front of you right now. Step 6. Choose your response from a grounded place, not a triggered one. This might mean setting a clear boundary. It might mean simply letting something go because it genuinely doesn't matter in the long run. It might mean having a calm conversation later, once everyone's nervous system has settled. Whatever you choose it, don't let it choose you. A person walking away from a chaotic scene, flashing lights, arguing figures blurred in the background, walking calmly forward into clear, open light. This sequence takes practice. The first few times, you'll catch yourself 3 sentences into an angry text before you remember any of this. That's completely normal, and it doesn't mean you failed, it means you're human, and you're unlearning patterns that took years, sometimes decades to install. But every single time you catch it even a little earlier than the time before, you are rewiring something real in your brain. This isn't metaphorical. Neural pathways that get used less often actually do weaken over time, while the new pathway of pausing and choosing gets stronger with every rep, the exact same way a muscle grows stronger with every rep at the gym. What your life looks like on the other side of this. I want you to picture something for a moment. A person receiving a hurtful text message, reading it once, setting the phone down calmly, and going back to making dinner completely unbothered. Picture getting a message that would have wrecked your entire day 6 months ago, and instead you read it, you feel the spark, you let it pass through you in 6 seconds, and you simply continue your evening. Not because you don't care, because you've decided that your peace is not a hostage that anyone else gets to hold ransom. Picture sitting across from someone you love during a disagreement, and instead of raising your voice, you speak slower, softer, clearer, and watch how it disarms them, how it makes the whole conversation safer for both of you, how it actually gets you the resolution you wanted, far faster than yelling ever did. Picture making a mistake, a real one that cost you something, and instead of spiraling into 3 days of self-punishment, you simply say to yourself, that's information. What's my next move? And you actually move. Picture sitting in traffic, missing a flight, dealing with a rude stranger, and realizing that none of it has the power to ruin your day unless you handed that power yourself. This isn't about becoming numb, it's the opposite. Numbness is what happens when you suppress feelings until you can't feel anything at all. What I'm describing is the opposite of numbness. It's depth. It's feeling everything fully, in the moment, for exactly as long as it's useful, and then releasing it, rather than dragging every hurt behind you for the rest of your life like a chain of anchors. The final shift. Here's the thing I most want you to walk away with today. For your entire life, you've probably measured your strengths by how intensely you could feel and express your emotions, how hard you could love, how hard you could fight back, how loud your hurt could be heard, and there's nothing wrong with feeling deeply. Feeling deeply is a gift, not a flaw. But real strength was never about the volume of your reaction. Real strength is about the space you can hold between what happens to you and how you choose to respond to it. That space is the one thing in this entire world that no person, no circumstance, no bad day, no cruel comment, and no unanswered text can ever take away from you unless you hand it over yourself. Final shot, a single candle flame, steady and unmoving, even as wind visibly blows around it, ruffling curtains and papers nearby, but the flame itself stays lit and calm. You are not required to be angry just because someone hurt you. You are not required to be upset just because something didn't go as planned. You are not required to punish yourself just because you made a mistake. Those are options, not obligations. And now that you can see the mechanism behind them, you get to choose every single time which one actually serves the person you're becoming. That's not weakness. That's the quietest, most unshakable kind of strength there is. And once you really felt what it's like to stay steady while the world around you shakes, you will never want to go back to giving that power away again.